My dad was a church planner for the Southern Baptist Convention. He's gone on to be with the Lord in 2021. He's gone to glory. He said, a good thing, when it replaces the best thing, becomes an evil thing.
Well, welcome back to Civically Minded, where I give you practical theology for everyday life. As always, I'm your host, Corey Wing. Did you know that all my interview segments, just like this one here, are now being added to my audio podcast on Apple and on Spotify? Simply search for Civically Minded and enjoy solid Christian content on your long commute, while at the work or gym, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. And be sure to tell a friend how they too can enjoy Civically Minded. Well, my guest today is the pastor of First Baptist Church of Cedarvale, Kansas, a podcast host and author with a deep passion for introducing people to the person and work of the Lord Jesus Christ. His mission is to equip others to find their full sufficiency in Christ and in His Word, empowering them to lead with conviction in their homes, churches, and communities, all, of course, for the glory of God. He lives in Oklahoma with his wife, Jamie, and their 4 children, Hannah, Gabe, Austin, and Noah. I'm excited to welcome my friend, Pastor Caleb Gordon, to the Civically Minded podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I really appreciate you coming on and making the time for me.
Absolutely.
Caleb and I, for my audience, Caleb and I met a couple of years ago at the Ark Encounter in Kentucky. We were both there for the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference. I think that year it was on 6-day creationism. And we kind of we hit it off. We exchanged numbers. We've kept in kind of periodic contact ever since. And then we've run into each other at another Fight, Laugh, Feast conference since then. And, now just kind of run in similar circles. You were already doing a podcast and doing some of this back when we met. I was not back then. I didn't have any of this stuff going on in my world back in those days. This wasn't even a pipe dream.
You were talking about wanting to start one the first time I met you. We were out at that, I don't even know where it was. It was in the middle of a field overlooking the Ark, and it was lots of cigars and bourbon and all the fun stuff. And you were talking about considering moving that direction.
Yeah.
And then the next year, when we were over there in Fort Worth, I was like, holy cow, you're here. And you had your podcast with you. I was like, that's awesome. So it was fantastic. Well,
you and others were kind of a really big influence in that. And I don't know that I've ever shared that with you, but how this kind of happened in real time for me is I was, as you said, toying around with the idea for quite some time. And it was my wife who took me aside one day, because my big pushback on myself was, who in the world would care what I have to say about anything? And God bless our wives. She took me aside and kind of said, I do. And the congregation at our church does. And, you watch a ton of this kind of content on YouTube and, you listen to podcasts and stuff. I said, oh yeah. And she's like, are all those guys, Johnny Mac? Are they all super famous? And I was like, no, actually, most of them are not at all. And they're just faithful men of God. A lot of them are pastors. Some of them aren't even pastors. They're just faithful guys. And she said, and you don't think you could be one of those guys for someone else? And I'd never seen it that way. So I mean, it was the faithfulness of men like yourself that really helped me kind of say, okay, if those guys can be faithful in the little world that God's given them, then I suppose I can be too. So thank you for that.
Let me just say, I honestly love the fact that it's a small world. I don't want to be a mega church pastor. I don't want a mega podcast. I don't want that stuff, because eventually, if you become when you put the big target on you, I mean, when you get the bigger audience, everybody's like, oh, let's see how we can blow him up. Let's pick apart every little tiny word that he says. And I like having just a few folks listening and enjoying the camaraderie between the podcast fellows that are in that same sphere, because, man, we sharpen each other. Like, we listen to each other's stuff and we talk to each other about the things that we're addressing, and it builds confidence, and it builds camaraderie, and it builds community. And man, I love it. Like the other night, when I can't remember who was this. This is not too. I say the other night. This was a couple months ago. Somebody did. I think it may have been you or Greg from Dead Man Walking. Did like a Twitter live thing, and I just clicked the button and joined, and like all of a sudden there's like boom, boom, everybody started talking. All of a sudden, like guys like Michael Foster's in there, Keith Foster, Michael Foster and Keith Foster jumped in, and I was like, holy cow! And like they're talking to us, and it's just one of those things where like, this is fun. Like this is neat. Like just being able to have these conversations. It's just like at Fight Laugh Feast, like all the speakers that are on the stage, they're at the after parties, they're at the other places, just wander around visiting. And like I got to sit and talk to Toby Sumter for like Pastor Toby for like 30 minutes
Yeah.
just about life and ministry. And it was just like, where else can you get that kind of camaraderie other than in these kind of circles? And I love it. So that's awesome, bro. You never know where your influence is going to go. You never know who is going to listen. You have no clue. Like it's the wildest thing in the world. People reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, I enjoyed your podcast. Listen to this." And I'm just like, "Where are you at again?" They're like, "Oh, I'm in Michigan." It's like, what?
That's right.
It's just the wildest thing in the world, and you have no idea. So,
Well,
yeah,
we and I say that to put some feet to that for all of you kind of watching or listening. That's true not just for those of us that do this kind of quote professionally. That's true for each and every one of us as Christians, right? So you don't know who's watching, you don't know who's listening, you don't know who's observing your life. We just had a story at our church this past Sunday. A guy met a lady and he was telling her about our church and asking her if she knew about Jesus Christ, and she said, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And he said, "Well, yeah, they go to our church." And she said, "I waited on them at a restaurant I was working at back in 2022, and it was one of the darkest times of my life, and they asked if they could pray with me, and they prayed with me, they prayed for me, and then the wife and I kind of, texted back and forth for a while. It's been a long time since I've spoken with either of them, but they were there for me in one of the darkest seasons of my life." And it was
that's fantastic.
incredible. I mean, and she remembered that, 3 plus years later, she was still remembering that. And so what a wonderful testimony that you don't know who's listening, you don't know who's watching, and our faithfulness to the Lord is multiplied in ways because of the Spirit of the living God that we couldn't possibly do on our own. So it's an amazing thing. Well, to that point, I wanted to touch on something, and I've not been able to order a copy yet, but I have every intention of doing so. You just released a new book entitled Reformed and Rejoicing in the Redemption of God, Reclaiming Calvinism from Bitterness and Arrogance. And man, I got to tell you, I'm super interested in the topic of this book. And mostly because the Reformed tradition can be kind of exclusive, right? We can have a tendency to err on the side of theological arrogance and rigidity. So tell me kind of what brought you about to this idea?
Man, Reformed X is exhausting. Like they're utterly
Yeah.
exhausting, and the amount of time and like if we I'm recently converted to postmillennialism. So thanks.
Welcome to the pool.
I know you're happier. Okay, I mean you're a whole lot happier. I'm like, if we would spend as much time advancing the gospel and working towards making disciples, as hard as much effort as we spend on our phones going through Twitter and clicking all the buttons and doing all the things, like what could we do in the area of business, in the area of the church, in the area of education, you name it, politician, you name it, rather than sitting here just do on Sunday, every Sunday, everybody gets a notification if you have an iPhone as to how much screen time you spend a week on your stupid phone.
And if you're not convicted by it, then you're a better man than me, because that means you're not spending the copious amounts of time that I am.
Bro, last week it was 5 hours a day. I was like Sunday. I literally get out of my car. I mean, it goes off right before I get out of the car to walk into church. So every Sunday I feel this extra level of, oh, I can't. And I was like, all right, purposely keep this thing go away from me, go away from me. And I'm like, something. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the next thing you know, I've been scrolling, doom scrolling Reformed X. And I purposely, after this whole G3 thing, I stayed off of X because I was like, I don't know. Because I deep dive when the whole thing with Lawson, I deep dove into that thing, and I felt gross. I just felt disgusting after. And I was like, this is not edifying. And here's my bottom line on that whole thing. I know I'm ADD on you. I'm sorry. Here's what I was thinking about this. I was on a walk today. I was thinking about this. I don't know Steve Lawson personally. I don't know Josh.
Josh Bice. Yeah.
Josh. I don't know him. I don't have any skin in the game on either one of those dudes. And we've elevated these guys to the position where we think we know them because we read their stuff. And we feel like we have skin in the game because we bought a book, we listen to their sermons. We don't have skin in the game. You know who I have skin in the game with? My wife, my kids, and my congregation. Those are the people that I have skin in the game with. If I put as much effort and time in my family and my local church as I would on social media, debating whether or not he's qualified to be in ministry or not, I could give a rat's rear end on this dude. I don't care. I don't know him. But I do know Chancey, the guy who goes to my church. I do know Jamie, my wife. I do know Noah in my house. Like I know my children. I know all my kids. I know my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law. I know all the people that are connected with me. And if I spend enough time, as much time loving on them, investing in them, pouring into them, sending them scriptures, praying over them as much as I'm like, okay, let's find the next thing that's up here. And by the time we're all said and done, we're just cranky. And like I watched yesterday online, I watched it in real time on the comments section, a father-in-law and a son-in-law battle it out over whether or not Josh is qualified or disqualified. And the comment section was stupid. And I was like, the division over somebody you don't even know. And guess what? He's sitting in his house tonight. He's not thinking about Caleb Gordon. He doesn't know Caleb Gordon. So because he doesn't know or care about me, I'm disconnected. And I'm going to go love on the people. I sat and ate dinner with my family tonight. I ate with my son, my wife, and I went for a walk. And I went outside and just, listen, you go for a walk for a little bit in the evening, especially now it's summer, a little sweat. Listen, if you can't smell me, if you could do a scratch and sniff on the screen right now, you'd probably be like, probably not. But I know we set these guys up in certain areas. We're just like, oh, I love these guys. I love it because they do speak truth. I get that. But what we can do is we elevate these dudes to such a level that is only designed for Christ. And because here's the reality. I am going to fail at some point. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to not treat my wife the way I should. I'm going to yell at my kids. I might even flip somebody off in traffic just because I get so angry. And I'm like, oh, you're a pastor. You shouldn't do those kinds of things. Okay. You're right. I shouldn't. I need to repent. But here's the bottom line. If we watched you all day long under a screen, under a microscope, you would eventually screw up somewhere, and there would be somebody go, oh, some self-righteous reform dude on Twitter going, let me tell you about Caleb, or let me tell you about Corey, and it just drives me nuts. And so the idea in the book is that Reformed theology should humble us, that God awoke me to the reality of my sins. You know how many people, I live in Bartlesville, Oklahoma right now. There's 36,000 people in my town. Do you know how many people are wandering the streets of Bartlesville, not concerned one iota about their sinful condition? They're actually enjoying their sin. They might even be on their phone showing off the sin that they're committing and excited about the reality of what they're doing, enjoying their sin because there is pleasure in sin, and they're not even worried about it. That God awoke you to the reality of your sin, that you're like, God, I can't believe I did what I did. I'm crushed over my sinfulness. Like, that's a gift. Don't get twisted and think you're something special. You're not. I'm not. Caleb Gordon is not special. I am a wretch. I am a wicked, vile, nasty man that has been saved by grace. period.
Amen.
There's nothing special about me. I got nothing that people should, look up to. You shouldn't. You should look up to Christ. And if there's anything in me that you should look up to, is that when I imitate Christ, that's when you'd be like, yeah, go, Caleb, you're imitating Christ. I want to try to imitate you as you imitate Christ. There we go. Cool. Let's go. 100%. There's nothing magnanimous about who I am, but I can tell you that Jesus is, and Christ is more than sufficient, and He can take what's broken and what's messy and fix it. And that's the idea of the book, is rather than getting cranky, because man, we get in these cage phases and we're just cranky. And I get we're excited. Like I get that Calvinists are excited about what we've learned. And it's like a brand new, it's like, it's like open up a fresh, iPads, you peel off the plastic and it's beautiful and it's gory. And it's just, I love that. It's awesome. Right? We get excited, but it's, we gotta temper that somewhat, because as soon as somebody's like, well, because this is something that I introduced in my church. I've been pastoring for 6 years, and introduced the 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith. And I was like, okay, we're going to walk slowly through this. I didn't jump in and be like, all right, everything Calvinist, let's go, and just freak everybody out, because you jump in, you're like, okay, what do you all believe? You say you're Baptist. Do you know what Baptists believe? We believe the Bible. Cool. Okay. Let's flesh that out. Help me understand and just start asking questions. And then rather than trying to ready to be responsive, just listen, and they'll tell you what they believe. And inevitably, free will. Okay, cool. Let's talk about free will. Can we flesh that out for just a second? What does free will mean? Well, I get to choose. Okay, great. Are we talking about ice cream? Are we talking about steak or hamburger? What are we talking about? And so we have to flesh all those kinds of things out. And when you walk with people patiently, it is amazing. Like I was convinced that when I brought 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith, my church was going to just hang me out to dry. And we got done with the predestination section in that thing, and I was like, I was driving. I was even told my wife, I was like, today may be the day. Driving, and we get there and we get through it. And the couple of people that I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. And they're like, well, it's in the Bible. Because I've been consistently 4 years saying, if we've got anything outside of biblical doctrine, we got to get rid of it. Wow, I got Baptist doctrine, I got Methodist doctrine, I got Wesleyan doctrine, I got Presbyterian doctrine, I got this. Okay, great. What does the Bible say? It doesn't matter what do you think about homosexual marriage? What do you think about this? What do you think about? It doesn't matter what I think. Doesn't matter. I'm going to be dead soon in this grand scheme of eternity, and somebody else is going to be preaching the pulpit that I'm preaching in right now. There was somebody there 50 years ago. There's going to be somebody else in there in 50 years, Lord willing. Doesn't matter what I think. What it matters is, what does the Bible say? And if the Bible says certain things, like the word predestination and election, we should probably figure that out. The word predestination and election is used more than 30 separate. There's 30 separate verses that deal with those particular two doctrines. We should probably pay attention to those. If there was 30 of anything else in the Bible, if we were like, we'd like to talk about, there's 30 Bible verses about God's blessing in our lives. I'd like to pull those out and use those for my, coffee cup, and have it up on my table so everybody can see it, because God blesses me and blah, blah, blah. We'd want those, right? But when we're like, before the foundation of the world, God predestined me for adoption. What does that mean? What do you mean He predestined me for adoption? I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much.
No. Yeah, and then you get into because you're very right. If we're quiet enough to listen, people will share with you where their heart's really at, but that's also true of their actions, right? So I mean, I know, like in our church and in every church, you've got the folks that start to show you the things that they truly value. Now they can say, oh, we love the Lord, oh, we love the church. And I'm not saying they don't have some modicum of love for the Lord or for the church. And I get that. And that changes and varies over time for each of us, right? I don't love the Lord the same today as I did 10 years ago, and I hope 10 years from now I love the Lord differently than I do now. So I understand how maturation works.
Yep.
But when you start to realize, um, and I'll just use a couple of examples that I think are very normal, not just again, not for just my church. I think every church deals with this. You've got the families that when their kids are at a certain age, they're locked in the sports route, and so they miss 3 out of every 4 Sundays for like 5 months or 6 months or 7 months, depending on the sport. And then they're like, oh, but we're gonna get back, and I always tell those young parents, I'm like, you're teaching those children something, and I'm not sure you understand yet what it is you're teaching them. But at 17 or 18, they're going to show you.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I hope it's not heartbreaking when they do. I hope that you're not coming to me then and saying, we've lost our kid. Well, you were telling them that everything in life was more important than the Lord from the time they were 6 till the time they were 18. So
we had a fascinating conversation. There was a lady in my church. She's 85, and man, I want 700 of Walidas. Like that woman, like I want more of those kind of this lady. She and I are having a conversation, and our Wednesday night programs, we have a lot of student stuff that happens on Wednesday night. And there was a sports banquet in town. One high schooler showed up for the thing that happened. And I was just like, interesting. So I did a deep dive into statistics. I was like, okay, I need some statistics on the average sports time spent. Junior high. This is junior high entry level, coming in 6th grade, coming into sports. I wasn't talking about pee-wee sports, and I was starting at junior high because that's when people usually. I know that there are certain parents that start when they're really, really young, but junior high is when it like quote unquote starts to matter, right? The average per week for junior high students playing sports, 8 to 12 hours a week. That's junior high. Bump it up to high school. You're looking at 15 to 25 hours a week for high school. Then if you get into the high level travel sports teams for high schoolers, you're looking at anywhere from 15 to almost 45 hours a week. That includes everything. 45 hours a week.
that's a full-time job.
Bro.
Yeah.
So then I did a compare and contrast. What's the same idea for kids involved with church and Bible activities? Low end, 1 hour a week. If you're genuinely fully activated, this is just per all the stats from Barna and all this other stuff. If you're fully activated, 3.5 hours. This is average church, average Christian kid in a church. If you're quote unquote fully activated for the cause of Christ in your church, 3.5 hours.
Now, to put that in perspective, my 9-year-old daughter spent about 3 hours last night on her homework for one night. And I think that was mostly math. For one subject, one night, she spent about 3 hours doing homework at 9 years old. And we think that we can give our kids at most, like you said, fully activated, at most 3 to 3.5 hours of Christ a week. And think that that's going to suffice to safeguard them from all of the other stuff that the world is throwing at them, or to catechize them into anything that resembles a genuine faith. And all I can say to that is go and read Judges chapter 2 in the death of Joshua. And where it's very clear that scripture says, and Joshua the son of Nun died, and Israel followed the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua. But there came a time when Israel neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. And how does that happen? In one generation, how does that happen? It happens because we don't spend any time. They've forgotten Deuteronomy 6. They'd forgotten all of the instructions of Deuteronomy 6.
Yes. And it's one of those things that it blows my mind because in this conversation, in that conversation, it led into a different conversation with some other people. And this parent said, in this, because it's a small town, all my kids have is sports.
Yeah.
And I was like, if that's all your kids have, then shame on you. Shame on you, mom and dad. Like, why are we doing this? Because you know what we're doing? We give our kids these.
Yep.
And we say, okay, go scroll for a few hours so I can scroll and I need me time. Like, that wasn't a thing of my grandparents. My grandparents didn't have me time. I mean, they worked their guts out and they didn't have me time. You know what their me time was? Sitting around the table with me, sitting around the table with my parents. Like, so I read a book. The guy's not necessarily a solid theologian, but he did some stats. He went and lived with a Amish community for 7 weeks, disconnected from his phone completely, like shut it off. Did a brain scan, pre and post event. This event, it completely changes his brain. So when it comes to sitting around the table, so I have a friend. His name's Ryan Dobson. I don't know if you know. Do you know who James Dobson is?
Of course. Yeah.
So Ryan, his son, is a friend of mine. And James Dobson used to say, true discipleship, genuine evangelism, discipleship happens around a dinner table, especially with your children. And I was like, he's not wrong. The average amount of time that the average American family in church spends around a dinner table with their kids. Can you guess the time frame?
30 minutes.
Close, 25.
Yeah.
25 minutes. That's it. This family, this guy went and lived with for 7 weeks, a minimum of 90 minutes around the table. Don't think you can't have genuine gospel-centered, life-transforming conversations in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And so when my kids were young, I'm like, 3 of my kids are grown and out of the house. I got 1 left in the house. When they were really young, we'd sit around the table, and I learned this from a guy. We called it high-low. What's the high point of your day, and what was the low point of your day? Well, let's talk about both.
Yeah, that's good.
And we just went around the table, and man, we learned things about our kids. They went to a private Christian school, and there were things that got brought to our attention during the dinner table that we never would have heard about had we not sat for 45, 50 minutes around the table. And sometimes there was tears and like just fighting through some tough stuff. And there was other times like we could uncontrollable laugh, like we laughed so hard our stomachs hurt. And that was something that was super important. And like tonight, we didn't spend 50 minutes around the table. We spent we were all in the kitchen together. We're cooking. My wife made some insane chicken, like legit, with some asparagus and some mashed potatoes, bro. And just had great conversation. We were talking about some things that were popped up on social media today about the idea of Calvinism. So we're talking through those things. So great conversation pieces, right? But if we don't sit around a table and talk about these things, and most of the time when we get around tables, and I'm guilty, like I don't think I'm just here pointing fingers. I'm guilty of this, so I need to I'm repenting as well. Like I said, my time on my stupid phone is where the camera is dumb. So oftentimes we'll go to a Freddy's, and when we're waiting for our food, what are we doing?
Yep. Instead of engaging with one another, yep.
Looking at each other in the eyes. And my wife has called me on this, and she doesn't do it like, you idiot. She's like, baby, listen, our son's watching you.
Yeah,
and
be present. Be present.
Right.
Yep.
And there's part of me like, listen to me, woman. Because we have that, I want to be in charge. I need to disconnect. I'm like, no, I don't need to disconnect. I need to put my stupid phone away. And like, I keep replaying this idea. I only have, if our kids leave at 18, 19 years old, which most of my kids have, our daughter stayed the longest. She stayed till she was 20, and then she got married. Like, she literally lived in my house, courted a young man. They got married. She moved out. Next day, she lived with her husband. So I had 20 summers with my daughter. I had 19 with my oldest son. We had 19 with my middle son. They went to college, and they're living their own lives now. Like Gabe's now married with his wife, and Hannah's married to her husband. Austin's in college. They're living their lives. I don't have them in my house anymore. And here's the reality and the truth is what we do when they're young will reverberate when they're adults. They're active in their churches. Like, this is the cool thing. Like, my son-in-law and my daughter they moved to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and they were over there working and doing some things. And I told them, I said, listen, you guys need to be connected. As we're talking about church, and that's all I said. I didn't really go deep into it. I was like, you guys just need to find a solid biblical church. And I've trained my daughter up for 20 years, right? And so my son-in-law comes to me and he brings me what they did. So that he did all the research online, found all these church reports, doctrinal statements, did all the stuff, found like 3 churches that looked solid. So what they did is he created a graph, like a spreadsheet graph, like sectioned up into worship, fellowship, community, what's the music, just basic stuff. And has all these different categories, scoring it between 1 and 10, and then have place for notes. Neither one of them told each other what they were doing. Hannah had one, Cayman has one. They're filling out their form during church. Like, is the preaching, is he staying true to the word? Is he at the end of the 4th week, they go to church for 4 weeks to go through the whole, they did everything, Sunday school, the whole 9 yards, right? Yep. At the end of the 4 weeks, they would go on a date together and they would exchange papers and they would talk about we got to find a point, we got to land. And they did it twice. On the second church, they were like, we found it. Like, they didn't have to go to the other 2. They're like, no, we're done. We found our home. This is it. And now they're actively engaged, helping with music, doing music, helping with the music ministry, helping with like the welcoming team, just doing all these things. And I'm just like, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fantastic. And same thing for my son. They're over there in Branson, Missouri area, and they're doing the same kind of thing. They're connected in with their church, with a small group, and they're connected in with an older gentleman and his wife, who are very reformed in nature, who teach Sunday school class, and they go eat dinner with them on a regular basis, and they fellowship. And I'm just like, I feel like I succeeded.
Yeah.
And God did amazing things in spite of me, not because of me. I mean, I wanted to be available. Don't hear me say, well, I didn't do anything special, which I was intentional. I just spent time. Yeah. I didn't do anything magnanimous. I just was like, okay, I'll stumble through this. I didn't know everything. I still don't know everything. I'm not a perfect parent. Like, there was plenty of times at the end of the night when we would pray together as a family. Oftentimes I would just be like, God, where I messed up today. Like, I would own my mistakes in front of my kids. That was one thing some of our family was,
which is powerful. Very, very powerful.
And we had some family members that were like, I can't believe you're owning your mistakes in front of your children. You got to get your bluff in on them kids. And I'm like, no, they need to know that dad's a sinner too. Dad is messed up. And if I've messed up in front of them, especially, or to them, I need to fix that. Like, I need to own it. Like, listen, Dad was wrong. I'm sorry that I said those things. I shouldn't have talked to your mom that way. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I was wrong there. Will you please forgive me? That's powerful. You know how many parents don't ask their kids for forgiveness because they think
it's huge.
Like, ask your kids to forgive you for the stupid things you do, because I don't know if you know this. We all do stupid things. Like,
I somewhere I vaguely heard about that. I mean, I'm still exploring it, but I vaguely heard about it.
Yeah, like we totally do dumb things, and it's like one of the wildest things in the entire world that we do that, and if we just own it,
Yeah.
like that's huge because there's so many parents that don't own it, and so that resentment grows, right?
Well,
Resentment.
I'm thinking as you're talking, let me spit this at you and see what you think. I know that there has been this kind of dichotomy that we've talked about. I've talked about on this channel even, where especially with the growth of the seeker sensitive movement back in the late 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm 47. You're probably right around my age, maybe a year or two older. So we're pretty contemporary of one another. Grew up in very similar contexts, though you have grown children that are married, and I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So God, keep praying for me. Yeah, keep praying for me. I'm tired and I have young kids,
Yes,
So,
yes.
my knees hurt and my son wants to play all the time and wrestle. But so we've talked about this dichotomy, and I don't think it's a false dichotomy. I do think it's real. About we traded in some measure, we traded virtuous pastors. And again, you mentioned Josh Bice earlier and what's just happened with G3. We could talk about Dr. Tony Evans just a couple years ago. We could talk about Steve Lawson. We could talk about oh golly, there's been so many. Pastor Robert Morris down your way, Carl Lentz, David Platt. I mean, we could go on and on and on, right? And that's unfortunate.
It is.
But we traded these virtuous men of yesteryear for these very vulnerable men of the seeker sensitive movement of, oh, I'm just like you. Oh, I look at porn from time to time. And I'm so, I mean, and again, it's not that I'm not saying that, we have pastors that are perfect anywhere, but we got to this point where there was such vulnerability that it was kind of like, why in the world am I listening to what you say? Why are you even standing in the pulpit? You're a mess. I mean, but what I heard you just say, and again, this is what hit me while you were talking, and I've seen this in my own life too, because we try to practice that kind of that same kind of honesty with our kids, even if they're young ages. We try. It is when you're vulnerable in the right ways, you actually build virtue.
Yes.
So it's not a either or. You don't have to be virtuous or vulnerable. You can actually be vulnerable in the right ways, show honest to God, heartfelt contrition, confession, and repentance. And in that vulnerability, your virtue grows in the eyes of whether it's your children or your congregation or your spouse, or even in this world that you and I, this weird world of podcasting that you and I are involved in, even over these airwaves, it can be the same way. When we're vulnerable in the right ways, it's what I said about the G3 thing just yesterday when I first heard about it. I'm in some private chat groups like you are with some of the other guys and gals that do what we do. And of course, there were a ton of opinions. And the first thing I typed out in one of our private chat groups, and this is not to make me look great. Please, my audience, don't hear this as, oh man, Corey's awesome. No, I'm not. It was a moment of brief spiritual clarity where the Spirit was leading me, and I actually shut up and listened to his voice, which I don't do often, sadly. But as everybody else was kind of saying their piece, I typed out a prayer, and then I said, guys, what does Scripture tell us? You who are spiritual, restore such ones, but be careful, because you're susceptible to the same kind of sin and the same kind of fall that all of the men I just mentioned earlier have fallen to, whether that's sexual or financial or ego or any of there's only 3 or 4 things that most pastors fall to. Let's be honest. I mean, the Satan keeps regurgitating the same 3 or 4 basic sins, and all of us numbskulls keep falling for them, because no temptation has taken you but that which is common to man, right? So
and if we're not careful, we will, like, it 100% like that. I 100% could fall for any of those things. Especially because we live in the world of the internet. And oh, you're so great at what you do, Pastor. Oh, you're so good at your podcast. Oh, you're so good at this. Okay. That's great. I'm really grateful for the compliment. But man, what those compliments can sometimes do, especially if one of your love languages, like words of affirmation, when people start stroking your ego and telling you how amazing you are, like it builds you up to a point where you're just like, whoa. And then somebody's like, actually you suck. And you're just like, and you implode and you like go into this psycho mode where you want to get online and get a secret account and start bashing other people because you got bashed one time. And it's just like, wait, what? And so that's like the internet is a wild thing, and we have to be careful. Like I surround myself like, and it's funny to watch because I have people around me. Nobody thinks I'm awesome. Like they,
Yeah.
my church makes fun of me often. Like I don't like they're not. Oh, he's amazing. Oh, you're just so gloriously awesome. I'm like, well, you're a hillbilly.
Yeah.
And like there's times where I'll say something dumb in the pulpit, and I'll get called on it by the men in the church that are spiritual. Like, bro, okay, hey, you said this. I'm like, you're right, I did. I shouldn't have said that. And then I'll get back like, and sometimes even my wife will do it. Like there was, I don't know, this is like last year, the end of the year, I said something in the pulpit. And I could tell my wife was because she's really close to the front row. And I was looking down there and she was like digging in her Bible. And I'm like, man, girl's really getting after, man. Holy Spirit. And I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, Caleb, you've really just spurred your wife on. Look at her just digging in the word, seeing what you could find. And she gets in the car. She's like, so that thing you said that she goes, I did some digging while you were preaching, and I don't think you're right here, sweetheart. Here's why. And shows me this stuff. And I was like, crud, you're right. And so I got up the next Sunday. I was like, listen, guys, it's been brought to my attention. And my wife, and this is my wife. She goes, don't you dare tell our congregation that I called you out on this, because I do not want them to even think that we had like that I'm over you, because I am not over you by any stretch of the imagination, but this is what I saw, and I just want to make sure you're okay. And I was like, what? Like, that's a helpmeet. Like, that's a godly woman. Like, that was awesome. I was like, okay, cool. And so I just brought it up. And I was like, listen, I was wrong here and here. Or here, this is where I was wrong. I want to own it before the church. Sorry about that. Let's talk about this for about 5 minutes, and then we'll jump into the next part of the sermon.
Yeah.
And you know why I was wrong? I had gotten busy, took some shortcuts in my sermon prep, didn't flesh out the text the way I should have fleshed out the text. I got busy doing probably something stupid with a podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was like the moment I was like, well, if you're not careful, you're going to fall on your face in front of the world, and you're going to be the next idiot that does something online. Don't be that dude. Own it, walk away from it, run in the direction of Christ, and follow him, pursue him, get into the word more, pull the text apart more, and stop trying to be somebody you're not. Because everybody's like, oh, I want to be the next John MacArthur. John MacArthur wasn't trying to be the next John MacArthur. John MacArthur was just, I'm a local pastor of a small Baptist, like a small little, like Grace Community Church. You do watch the old videos. It was a little tiny church in California. And they just started playing, like, put him on radio, and it grew and it grew and it grew. He wasn't intentionally trying to.
Yeah.
Like, if you do the history and study what John MacArthur is now, that's not how he started. He started just a faithful dude, day in and day out, preaching verse by verse. And God took it and used it. He wasn't out here trying to build a brand or a name or a conference. Those things came. And I'm not saying conferences are bad. Conferences are great. I have one that we host, and they're not bad, but they can become a replacement. And what my dad used to say, a good thing, when it replaces the best thing, becomes an evil thing.
That's great advice.
That was my dad.
Repeat that one more time for my audience. That's a great nugget.
My dad, Ed Gordon, he was my pastor for all my entire life. My dad was a church planner for the Southern Baptist Convention. He's gone on to be with the Lord in 2021. He's gone to glory. He said, a good thing, when it replaces the best thing, becomes an evil thing.
Amen. That's sage biblical wisdom. So God,
I use that all the time.
God bless him.
I quote my dad, and I'll make sure anytime I tell people that quote, I'm like, This came from my pops. They come from the hillbilly. It came from my dad. So, in which my dad would say he was to be the chief hillbilly. So,
Well, you mentioned your conference real quick because I know we're probably coming up on a time limit here. But
yeah.
you mentioned your conference. You do host a conference called the Built to Conquer conference. Tell my audience a little bit about that project, how it started. Is it hosted? Do you host it there at the church at Cedarvale?
So we hosted in different places,
Okay.
different locations. The first year we did it was after Fight Laugh Feast. I'd never experienced a conference like Fight Laugh Feast. I'd always gone to other conferences, and
Yeah, me either. In fairness, me either.
Never experienced. I was like, I want to do this like in my town. I want to replicate this as much as I can. Something that's great. And so we just started small. We're like, okay, let's try this. First year we had about 40 people show up. And we had some friends. And I try to primarily make it about bringing in local pastors that shepherd local communities. Occasionally, I'll try to get somebody bigger. Like this last year, we had Gabe Wrench came and spoke, as well as Andrew Rappaport. Had a few more folks that came this go around. And we're going to do one in 2026. And after having extensive conversations in my house for multiple hours with Andrew and with Gabe and several other guys that do this kind of stuff on a regular basis, are like, bro, a one-day event is great, but it's like drinking out of a fire hydrant. And at the end of the day, because we did it for one day, we had 7 speakers. It was just like, I didn't want to get up and preach the next day because I was exhausted. Like there's 8 hours of preaching, and you're just I'm just tired. It was great stuff, but it's hard to digest. So what we're going to do this next year, March 12th through the 14th, and we're going to make it very community driven. We're going to do like an hour of teaching, but then we're going to do like an hour of fellowship. And we're going to do like an hour of teaching, hour of fellowship. And this year we've got Brother Keith Foskey coming in. Not only is he going to preach, but he's going to do a stand-up routine. So I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Andrew Rappaport's coming back. We've got several local pastors that I'm friends with that are coming in to be a part of this. And if things go as I hope, I'll come back and but we hopefully have a really cool announcement in the coming weeks that is going to get people, especially in our world, super excited if it comes to fruition. I'm crossing my fingers, hoping it's going to happen.
Now, where's the 2026 conference going to be held?
We're going to be at a Presbyterian church.
Yes, that's right.
I walked in. It's the Hope Presbyterian's pastor is a dear friend. He and I he literally lives catty corner from me, and we go to each other's houses and eat and have bourbon and cigars all the time, and love it. Like it's such a great time. Anyways, I walked into their church and they had this little bowl up on the platform, and I was like, this little brass looking bowl, and I was like, what the heck is that thing? Like, that's our baptistry. I was like, do you guys have a shrink ray? Is that how that works? You guys shrink ray and put everybody in there? And yeah, because we went back and forth. So we're going to be at Hope Presbyterian this year, and we got several Reformed Baptist folks coming in. We got some Reformed Presbyterians coming in.
I lost your audio feed there, buddy. Lost your audio feed. Not getting any audio. I think you were coming through your phone. Actually, I think your mic has been coming through your phone for some reason.
That's what it is.
Yep, there you go.
Am I back now?
You're back now.
It does. It says that I'm connected. It's this thing, not this thing.
Well, that's
fantastic. I'm sure
that explains
that explains so much. Like,
that explains some of the other noise that I was hearing in the background. I was like, wow, okay, it sounds like he keeps hitting his microphone, and you weren't, because I was watching. You weren't hitting the microphone in front of your face, but
hitting it. That is so wild. So I'm just gonna set it down.
No, it's all good. It's all good, man.
Set it right there. Not even.
See, for all of you listening or watching, even those of us that are pros aren't always we are always still we're still learning.
I've got all these. I've got all this stuff here, all everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's my phone that has been. That's fantastic. I don't even know what I said. I thought it sounded cool because I had this thing and I was doing this.
Felt like I was Tucker Carlson for a minute. But yeah, okay. Bananas. Anyways, Andrew Rappaport, like I said, some really good friends. Andrew and I have become really close. Greg is coming from Dead Man Walking. He's going to be our
Good.
host. And by the way, we are going to have a podcast roast. So if you want to come hang out in Bartlesville with me, Corey, come on, bro.
I'll start planning earworms into the wife now.
Bring her with you.
Yeah.
Bring her with you.
Small
Let's hang
kids,
out
man.
together.
Small
Bring them
kids.
with you. Hey, we're going to be in a Presbyterian church. That's totally fine.
They've already been baptized. No, it's Greg's a good friend. Andrew's a good friend. Keith's a good friend as well. So we know a lot of the same guys. Yeah, it's my big thing for 2020, end of 2025 going into 2026 for me is to finish up my seminary, get my licensure and my ordination done. And I mean, I preach once a month at our church now. It's so funny. PCA is so rigid about certain things, and I totally understand, and I even agree with their rigidity. But they are very rigid about things. So if you asked our members, they would say, "Oh, this is our associate pastor Corey," and I'm always like, "No, I'm not. I'm not ordained. I'm not licensed. You can't call me that." But they don't know how our polity works, and they don't care. I mean, they're like, you did our kids' premarital counseling, and you preached my grandfather's funeral, and I mean, and you preach once a month, and so you're our associate pastor.
You're our associate pastor. Yep, and that's how they perceive that. 100%.
That's right. But I do want to get that kind of buttoned up and behind me. Our head pastor is turning 75 this year, so it's that transition's coming.
Yep.
And again, I say it's coming. God could throw a curveball. He does that from time to time.
95, bro.
So yeah. So I hope he doesn't. We want to stay where we're at. It's where our kids were baptized. It's where we're raising them. It's where we love to be. So God willing, I'll be the next guy there. And so that's my big goal for the next 12 months, somewhere around there. So I'd covet your prayers on that. But man, thank you for your time tonight. I know we went a little over what we talked about, and I appreciate your kindness on going a little over. But I love your approach on just kind of the realism, because I do think, especially in the Reformed world, and so your book is so timely, it's so prescient to the moment that we're in. Had G3 not happened, it was still timely, but especially in light of what's just happened with G3 and some of the other things in the last couple of years in the Reformed world. And you're right, Reformed X is a cesspool. It's so vital to remember that 1 Corinthians 13 says, look, if we don't do this with love, if we don't have love, then
we got nothing.
Then we may as well just not show up. I mean, then we're wasting our time. So
humble voices carry further, man. I just keep, and I was in. And listen, don't think I didn't get here overnight. I used to be a cage guy, and if you didn't believe the way I did, you're a moron, and I'd make fun of you, and it didn't work. Like I even got in fights with. I went to an Armenian college, and so I got in fights with my professors just because I was. It's Thursday night. I feel like fighting. Let's go in here and fight with my Wesleyan professor. Did that help anything? No. It made it worse. So, yeah, humble voices carry further. I believe that.
Amen. Well, thank you to my guest, Pastor Caleb Gordon, for coming in and being a part of the show today. And of course, thank you to all of you that support my work here at Civically Minded. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share the content with someone, and leave me a comment below. Not only does it help with the algorithm, which it does, it helps me to interact with you, my guest. So let me know how the channel's blessed or challenged you. Let me know if you disagree with something that I've said. I really do read every single one of them. I promise you I do. Now, I may not interact with every single one of them because there are some crazy people on the internet. But but I do read every single one of them. And so interact with me. It's the way you can reach out. Caleb, tell our audience how they can find you and where they can find what you're doing.
Go to calebgordon.org. That's my website that has everything. You can get all my socials there, access to the book, the podcast. If you want to hear sermons that I preached, you just want to come on. And same thing. If you shoot me an email, I'll read it. If you sent me something stupid, I'll probably ignore it. But I will read it. It's funny. There's a Christian rapper named Caleb Gordon, and so I get a lot of. Um, I didn't know this. I guess he does stuff with some other famous Christian artists, and I get so many emails wanting to collab with me. And first, I was like, "Ooh, someone wants to collab with me? What do you want to collab on?" I mean, like, they're like, well, "I got this song," and I was like, "Song?" So I'm like googling. It's like Caleb Gordon, Christian rapper pops up first, and then me. So I'm like, so many people think I'm the Christian rapper. And I was like, I've only rapped once, and it was with Newsboys, and I rapped the Toby Mac's part for Jesus Freak. That's the only time I did it.
Nice.
That was like 3 years ago. That's the only time I've ever rapped on stage.
I think you should lean into it. Next time you get one, just be like, yeah, where can we meet? I'll be ready.
Man, let me just, and I'm gonna show up there and be like, "You're not the Caleb Gordon I know." I'm like, "I know, right?"
Just lean into it. Well, thank you, brother. God bless you for what you're doing. I'll be in prayer for your ministry. And for all of you listening, until next time, I'm your host, Corey Wing. And remember, be brave, be bold, and always be civically minded. God bless.